The bold and the beautiful, a tangled web of deceit, redemption, and the echoes of betrayal. In the glittering, high-stakes world of Los Angeles fashion, where love and ambition are often intertwined with treachery and obsession, a single announcement can shatter the fragile peace. For the characters of the bold and the beautiful, a life of glamour is perpetually balanced on a knife's edge, and a recent narrative, woven from whispers and spoilers, paints a devastating picture of love, betrayal, and the long, arduous path to redemption. This is the story of how a wedding announcement became the catalyst for a bombshell revelation, threatening to tear apart families, dismantle careers, and perhaps forge an unlikely and powerful new beginning from the ashes of heartbreak. At the heart of this saga is Thomas Forrester, a man whose tortured past and obsessive love for Hope Logan have defined his very existence. This narrative explores a future where Thomas, believing he has finally found a semblance of peace, is thrust back into the storm by the news of Hope's impending marriage to Carter Walton. What follows is a masterful game of vengeance and truth-telling, a dramatic unraveling that calls into question the very nature of Thomas's motives. Is this a selfless act to save the woman he loves, or the final, calculated move of a man still consumed by the darkness he claims to have left behind? This deep dive unpacks the layers of this compelling story, from the initial shock to the catastrophic fallout and the glimmers of a new, albeit complicated, dawn. Part 1. The Catalyst, a heart shattered by a headline. The digital ink was barely dry, but the words burned with the intensity of a wildfire. On the Forrester Creations internal network, an announcement flashed across the screen, a beacon of supposed joy that, for Thomas Forrester, was a death knell, Hope Logan, to wed Carter Walton in June. In that single, fleeting moment, the carefully constructed walls Thomas had built around his heart crumbled into dust. His heart slammed against his ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm that echoed the chaos suddenly unleashed in his mind. He had been doing so well. Therapy, the passage of months, the conscious effort to channel his formidable energy into his designs and his role as a father, he had believed it was working. He had confronted the horrors of his own psyche, the nightmarish sessions where he poured his heart out to a doll that bore Hope's uncanny likeness. He had whispered fevered promises to the hollow plastic eyes, sung twisted lullabies in the dead of night, and believed he had emerged from that darkness a changed man, capable of loving without destroying. But this engagement proved otherwise. It was a betrayal writ in the glaring headlines of the company internet, a message that chilled him to the bone and set his blood alight all at once. Carter Walton, the same Carter whose awkward jokes and boyish grin had somehow managed to disarm everyone, insinuating himself into Hope's world with an ease that Thomas found both infuriating and suspicious. To Thomas, Carter's very presence was a dagger twisting between his ribs, an unforgivable intrusion into the life he once so desperately coveted. He'd flown home at once, abandoning appointments, excuses tumbling from his lips. Thomas was consumed by a single, terrifying thought. Hope was going to marry Carter. He saw it all replaying in his mind. Hope's dazzled laugh at something Carter said, Carter's protective arm around her waist at the Vaunt launch party, the way he'd lingered at her side, whispering in her ear. Every moment he had missed, every smile Carter had won from Hope, now stung like acid. This wasn't just love lost. Thomas sensed a deeper, more sinister game at play. He had believed time and therapy had laid to rest the wildfire in his veins for Hope Logan, but this news stoked the embers into a roaring inferno. Only this time, the fire wasn't aimed at possessing her, but at protecting her from a truth he was now certain she could not see. Part 2. The Architect of Vengeance. The mission begins. Thomas arrived in Los Angeles not as a lovesick man, but as a revenant with a purpose. He traveled with only the essentials, a garment bag slung over his shoulder, a notebook stained with frantic scribbles, and a USB drive concealed in his pocket. Each item was a tool for the mission ahead. The garment bag held the guise of a designer, the notebook the chaotic map of his investigation, and the USB drive, the weapon that would crash their world. He cut through the city, his mind looping through every interaction he had ever observed between Hope and Carter, every gesture, every shared glance, searching for the cracks in Carter's carefully polished facade. He had not been idle in his time away. Driven by a lingering suspicion he couldn't shake, Thomas had delved into Carter's affairs, and what he found was a double betrayal so profound it threatened to bring down not just Hope, but the entire Logan and Forrester legacy. The first layer of deceit was corporate. Thomas recalled how Carter had charmingly promised to help Hope transition from model to designer, positioning himself as her personal manager, her confidant, her champion. It was a move that seemed supportive on the surface, but Thomas had discovered it was a calculated play. Through intercepted clandestine phone calls and recorded meetings, all meticulously documented on his USB drive, Thomas had uncovered Carter's secret. Emails revealed a plot to undercut Forrester's newest collection by colluding with a rival firm to leak sketches. He was undermining quality, rerouting Hope's designs through substandard offshore production, ensuring that her first major collection would be a failure. The goal was insidious: to make Hope doubt her own talent, to shatter her confidence so that she would turn back to him, her supposed savior, for reassurance. But the treachery ran deeper. The second, and perhaps more devastating, betrayal was aimed squarely at the Logan family. Worst of all, Thomas had uncovered documents suggesting that Logan Investments had quietly sponsored Carter's own startup, a shell corporation designed for embezzlement. They had trusted him, and in return, he was set to pocket millions in illicit markups, all while planting rumors that Forrester Creations was on the brink of bankruptcy. He was playing both sides, a wolf in shepherd's clothing, ready to fleece the very people who had welcomed him into their inner circle. All of it was designed to pressure Hope, to make her fear for her career and her family's stability, and to see him as her only safe harbor. Thomas had believed he was a monster, but he now saw a far more calculating predator in Carter Walton. He had the evidence, he had the motive, and he had the perfect venue to lay it all bare. Part 3. The Grand Reveal, Crashing the Gates of Paradise. The grand ballroom at the Beverly Hills Hotel was a glittering palace of promise. Floral arrangements of white peonies and blush roses lined the walls, their delicate scent mingling with the expensive perfume of the city's elite. A string quartet rehearsed softly in the corner, and cushioned chairs were set in neat rows for family and friends. Designers mingled with socialites, flute glasses of champagne tingled, and laughter floated like music through the air. It was the perfect scene for a rehearsal dinner, a celebration of a love story everyone believed was real. Hope Logan was the radiant center of this universe. She wore a soft smile as she drifted among the guests, her gown a cascade of silk and sequins in pale lavender, her signature color. She was the picture of unbreakable optimism, a woman on the cusp of a new and exciting chapter, completely oblivious to the impending cataclysm. Carter, resplendent in a midnight blue tuxedo, guided her toward their families with a proud beam, unaware of the shadow slipping in through the back entrance. Thomas moved with ghost-like stealth, his presence a stark contrast to the joyous celebration. He slipped behind the heavy velvet drapes that framed the ballroom's arched windows, his heart pounding a frantic tattoo against his chest. He felt a twisted mix of remorse and resolve. He was about to shatter Hope's world to save it. He clicked the USB drive into a concealed laptop, his fingers white with resolve, and with a final, deep breath, he projected the contents onto the ballroom's giant screen moments before the toasts were to begin. The quartet fell silent as the video flickered to life. The room, once filled with cheerful chatter, was plunged into a stunned hush. First, Carter's voice, captured in a clandestine call, promising a board vote leaked to a rival's execs. Next, a split screen showing grainy footage of Carter in a dark alley, handing sealed envelopes to a competitor's courier. Gasps rippled through the assembled crowd as static images of bank statements flashed across the screen, exposing Carter's offshore accounts and the thousands of dollars laundered from Logan Investments through shell companies, all traced back to his digital signature. Hope's smile froze mid-bite of an hors d'oeuvre, her cheeks draining of all color as she saw the man she loved cast as a calculating deceiver. The room erupted in chaos, shouts, sobs, and the flashing lights of phones as everyone recorded the unveiling. Ridge Forrester's face, etched with outrage and disbelief, loomed as he stormed forward. Brooke Logan clasped her hands over her mouth, her eyes brimming with tears. Steffi's jaw clenched, fury blazing in her eyes. Even Donna Logan, the family's matriarchal pillar, gasped as she realized the depth of the deceit. "Hope, I can explain," Carter stammered, his carefully crafted world crumbling around him. He dropped to his knees, his lips trembling as he reached for her hand. But Hope shook her head, tears now streaming down her cheeks. "How could you?" she choked out, her voice a raw whisper. "All this time." The words trailed to nothing as she realized the immensity of the double betrayal, from the man she loved and from the family she trusted to guide her career. Thomas strode into the center of the room, his eyes blazing with a terrifying mix of triumph and madness. "Hope," he called, his voice echoing in the silent room. "You need to see the truth." He gestured to the screen, where Carter's pleading face was caught in an endless loop of betrayal. "You think he's your savior, but he's been playing you and your family for fools. He's been dismantling your future step by step, making you depend on him while he pockets the millions you all worked for." Amid the gasp of heartbreak, Hope turned back to Carter, her gaze filled with a pain so profound it silenced the room once more. Then, she looked at Thomas, the architect of this destruction, and the savior of her future. The breath of her shock was mirrored in the stunned silence that settled over the room, a silence thick with shattered dreams and broken promises. Part 4. The Aftermath. Ashes and Rebirth. The morning after the explosive revelation at the Beverly Hills Hotel began in a haze of whispers and broken vows. Carter Walton's name was already being redacted from the wedding cake order, his life's trajectory altered from fiancé to fugitive in the blink of an eye. In his penthouse loft, he lay sprawled on a plush settee, a phone clutched in one hand and a half-empty glass of scotch in the other. He replayed Thomas's video over and over, each clip of his treachery a fresh wound. He knew he'd been cunning, but he never believed the Forrester-Logan alliance would mobilize so swiftly and so ruthlessly. As he drained the last of his scotch, he tapped out a terse message to his lawyer. "Meet me at my office in 1 hour. We need a strategy to salvage whatever's left." But as he waited, he found himself doubting every ally he had, every deal he thought was solid. His lawyer outlined the options: countersue for defamation, seek a plea deal, attempt a public apology tour. But none promised salvation, only varying degrees of humiliation. Meanwhile, across town at Forrester Creations, the family was in crisis mode. Ridge and Brooke Logan convened an emergency board meeting in the glass-walled conference room, overlooking Sunset Boulevard. "We cannot allow this scandal to cripple Hope's burgeoning career," Ridge said, his voice tight with anger. "She needs a runway, not a courtroom," Brooke added, her protective maternal instincts in full force. The Forrester executives, Donna, Eric's right-hand confidant, Steffi, now channeling her grief into steely resolve, and even Liam, whose loyalty to Hope had been tested by Thomas's prior madness, gathered around the long, polished table. It was Donna who suggested a surprise trunk show, showcasing Hope's latest collection under a new, powerful banner, born of resilience. It was a way to reclaim the narrative, to show the world that Hope was not a victim but a survivor. Part of Steffi wanted vengeance on Carter, but a larger part of her sought solace in family unity. "At last," she spoke, "Hope needs us united around her. No more intrigue, no more surprises. We rally for her, or we splinter." The room fell silent as the siblings and executives nodded in agreement. Back at the Logan compound, Hope convened her own intimate meeting with Thomas in the sunroom, the very place where he had once revealed his darkest secrets to her. He entered with cautious deference, a blueprint folder in hand, his eyes downcast. Hope sat on the wicker settee, sunlight dancing across her hair, and motioned for him to sit. For a long moment, they surveyed the tranquil koi pond beyond the window, the only witness to the turmoil of the last 24 hours. "These sketches are yours," he said softly, placing the folder on her lap. He indicated the fresh designs he'd completed in secret. No guests, no sponsors, no partnerships. Just you and your vision. Hope looked down at the crisp white pages, each line a testament to her talent, and allowed herself a small, bittersweet smile. "I can't believe you did this for me. After everything," her voice cracked, and Thomas reached to steady her hand. Their fingers brushed, and for an instant, the old forbidden spark flickered between them, a memory of a time before betrayal, before dolls and deception, when love burned pure and reckless. But Hope pulled her hand back gently, her eyes firm. "Thomas, I need time. Time to heal, time to build my career on my own terms. I don't know what the future holds for us, but I know I need to stand on my own 2 feet." Thomas nodded, pride and longing warring in his chest. "I'll be here whenever you need me," he vowed. No more secrets, no more games. Conclusion: a new dawn, a lingering shadow. As he drove away from the Logan estate, the USB drive still clutched in his palm like a trophy too heavy to bear, Thomas retraced his steps through the hotel gardens in his mind. The moonlight washed over rose petals stained with the echoes of betrayal. His mind flitted between triumph and regret. He had forced Hope to confront a duplicitous lover and the fragility of family trust, but in doing so, he had also reminded her of the darkness he himself represented. In the silent reckoning of his own soul, he realized that this act of vengeance had irrevocably bound their destinies once more. Hope may never trust him again, but she would never forget the shock he delivered. For better or worse, Thomas Forrester had re-entered Hope Logan's life, not as a forgotten threat, but as the man who held the most devastating secret of all. In that moment, Hope Logan, Avant, reclaimed her destiny, rising from the ashes of betrayal to claim not only her career, but her self-worth. Carter's name was a footnote, his treachery a cautionary tale, and Thomas's evidence, though born of obsession, had ultimately set her free. Yet beneath the glitter of her success lay the tender possibility of new beginnings, both for Hope's future in fashion and for the complex bond she shared with Thomas, the man who had once nearly destroyed her but now stood ready to defend her dreams. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, even the darkest acts can yield the brightest triumphs. And as the city celebrated Hope's rebirth, one truth remained: nothing tests the heart like betrayal, and nothing proves its resilience like the will to rise again. The question that lingers in the cool night air is whether a love born from such a tangled web of deceit can ever truly be pure, or if the shadows of the past will forever haunt their every step forward. Thanks for watching this videos. Please hit the subscribe button for more updated news.